And kicking us off, Terri Maxwell, the founder of ShiftCo. I'm blessed to support our members. I wake up every day trying to help them grow their business and go to sleep every night trying to help them grow their business. And one of the strategies that we developed is, rather than having quote unquote our founders be the master teachers, we started working with people like Laura Reid that are experts in their space, and we license their content, promote their work, so that we're always working with the best of the best. And in the area of speaking and storytelling, it's hard, and if it's not something you're comfortable with, you always feel awkward. And so Laura is amazing at this. She's an award-winning speaker herself, but I think her greatest pride, probably beyond her son and living in Hawaii, is the fact that many of the people that she works with also win speaking awards and have become very successful. So Laura, I'm going to turn the virtual stage over to you, and I'm going to become a student and learn from you.
Thank you so much, Terri. It's cool. That was a good segue, because that's my clients do win awards. And I wanted to share with you a little story to open up about one of my clients. I still have. I've had her the longest of anyone I've ever worked with. We're going on 2 years. And when she first came to me, her name's Arliss. I know she doesn't mind me sharing that. That when she came to me, she had just been asked to speak at a conference, and she was freaking out. She had never spoken before publicly. She was super nervous, texting me every day. I still don't know what I'm really going to talk about. The imposter syndrome. No one cares about my story. I'm going to totally forget how to speak, all of the things. I'm going to make so many mistakes. And so she was almost backing out of it, but we worked together. I helped her be really proud of her story. She had such a powerful, compelling story that could help other people. Of course, I helped her, avoid all these mistakes I'm going to go over with today. But I think it's also really important when we talk about mistakes to also, for me to mention that when we try to be perfect and we set that as our intention, it stifles us. It stifles our creativity and our authenticity and the importance of vulnerability. So even though I really do want all of you to avoid these mistakes I'm going to share and be aware of them, are you going to make them? Yes. Do I make them? Yes, but it's okay, because every time we make a mistake, what we consider a mistake, we're learning and we're growing, and we know what we need to maybe focus on a little bit more next time. I'm in a couple Toastmasters clubs that helps with public speaking. And when we give a speech in those clubs, someone is literally like judging us. They're writing down every time we say the word so, like, all those filler words, all of that. And that can be a little terrifying at first. We're like, but it really helps because it just makes you aware. So Arliss spoke at that conference and in front of hundreds of people. And what really got me was, as soon as she finished speaking, sharing her story, I knew it already. I had, chicken skin, we call it here in Hawaii, but, I had chills listening to her. And she called me immediately after, and she was crying. And she said, Laura, I know that my life has just changed. And you know what? She was right. Like, when we really honor our voices and our stories and start to grow our confidence, things change. I see it over and over. Lives do change. My life has changed because of that as well. And at the end of that conference, there's this coveted award. I had spoken at this conference a year before. And there's a coveted award. It's a vote from all the audience members, hundreds of people, who vote on the best presentation of that entire conference over many, many speakers, and including keynote speakers. And Arliss won that award. Like, the first time she ever spoke at a conference, she won that award. And here's the thing that I feel like I want to share, but I think it's really good for me to share. I spoke at that conference too. So when your student, surpasses the master, that's really special. And I'll never forget that in her story. And she's gone on from starting out as an admin assistant, I would say, with her business, never speaking, to now she's a best-selling international author. She speaks all over the world. She's a paid, well-paid professional speaker. Her business has grown tremendously. She's now a business coach. And in fact, I believe she's a master teacher now with Shifco as well, or about to be. So
Yes.
yeah, check out her courses. But I wanted to share that as a story of what can happen when we begin to, this is about public speaking. When we begin to put ourselves out there, the world is starting to open up. Like, are you ready? Are you ready? Either virtually, who was it that Derek, as like you help people impact those virtual audiences. Are you ready to get out there virtually more and in person as well? And there's people say a lot that we can't have as much of an impact virtually, and that, oh, I can't wait to just be in person, have real eye contact. I kind of disagree, actually, because when we're speaking virtually, everyone has a front row seat. Everybody has that, that eye contact. We just have to have faith and believe that there's actually people, beyond our little lens. And we might all be going a little cross-eyed by if we work on our eye contact to stare at that. But I do believe you can make just as much of a difference to any audience, big and small, every time you get up to speak. But avoiding these pitfalls I'm about to share with you is super important as well. So I want to start though with, I mentioned some of Arliss's fears. She was going to forget her words, not be able to talk at all, that no one cared about what she had to say, all of that, her fears with speaking. Please, if you write in the chat some of your biggest fears that you have when it comes to public speaking and making mistakes. Let me open up the chat here. Chat, here we go. Don't be shy. Put it in there. Anybody have some fears with speaking? Oh, I blink too much when I'm on Zoom. Interesting. Darn, now I'm going to be thinking about that. I think I do too, but I wouldn't have thought about it until you mentioned it. Forgetting what to say, Patty. Absolutely. Be clear, having clarity when we speak. They won't like it. Yeah, well, we can't please everybody, but yeah, same here. Absolutely. So something I'd like to start with focusing on, because right now with that question, you're focusing on yourself. Oh, I love Derek. I love making mistakes. Thank you, Derek, because like you said, you're learning something every time. Yes, I love that so much too. But something I like to focus on is, instead of looking at ourselves and our own fear, is looking at the audience, right? Really knowing who are they and having empathy for them. So how many of you have been in an audience and you haven't really connected with the speaker, or you've noticed things that notice them making mistakes? Like, has anyone ever been in the audience and felt like, oh, I didn't quite get what I signed up for here, right? So what are some of the mistakes that you've seen as an audience member that have kind of stayed with you that you want to avoid? We'll see if I'm sharing some of those same things. Saying things in a funny way. Oh, English is a second language. Yeah, you're so brave. Like, I have a hard time with English as a first language. So when you're speaking English as a second language, yeah, I think that's wonderful. You're doing that. Distractions. Someone reading their speech. That is a really big one. I definitely have that as one of mine. And once I'll host light up a cigarette during a virtual conference. He lit a smoke home out there. Okay, that's a new one. I do not have that on my list, but that is a new one to consider. The speakers focused on their own stuff versus sharing knowledge and insights and being boring at them. I love that too. I get a little turned off when a speaker, it's all about kind of selling something or selling what they do. That tends to turn me off a little bit. So it's a big like infomercial, and it's not quite what I signed up to do. That's not good either. But yeah, being boring. So just a run on of information. Absolutely. All right, these are all good. My point is that there are many mistakes that we can make, or many things that might turn off an audience. So I'm just sharing 7 that tend to stand out to me and that I hope will help you right away. Again, please take notes if you have a pencil and paper, but you will be receiving a PDF from me with all of these 7 tips for you today. One reason that I tend to stay away from slides lately, I've kind of gone back and forth with it, is just what you mentioned. Someone had mentioned kind of too much information and reading from the slides. I feel like when we use slides and there's a lot of information there, and the speaker is just reading it, in my mind, I'm thinking like, this could be an email and I could just get through that really quickly. And when we are speaking, it's this opportunity to exchange our energy, to really communicate and connect with people. And when we're relying too heavily on the slides, and instead of using them to support what we were saying, and not be what we are saying, I think it definitely makes much more of an impact. So here's deadly mistake number 1. Winging it. Winging it. And here's why. I believe that confidence is born from preparation. Confidence is born from preparation, not from our egos. We don't just wake up one day and we're like, you go girl, you got this. We're suddenly confident. It comes out of hard work. And just like anything, it's a skill. And the more that we do it, the more that confidence grows. We can have this false sense of confidence sometimes and I see this in meetings. You might be in a networking meeting where you become a bit complacent because you know everyone really well. You can just show up and wing it. You can do your 35-second, commercial pitch in your group and you got this. But I think it's really good to take a step back from that. And remember that, again, every time we speak in front of humans, we have this opportunity to change someone's life. You never know the ripple effect that your words are going to have. So please put in the effort, no matter what it is, what opportunity it is, a little extra effort to prepare. My dad used to say that there's no such thing as luck. You prepare for luck to happen. So I also believe that the more that we prepare in our lives in all ways, the more that people are like, oh, that's so lucky. It's like, nah, it wasn't luck. You prepare to set that foundation for good things to come by how you showed up. How much time should you prepare? I think it really depends on knowing your audience, knowing your own skill set, right? Being really clear with that. Like Patty had mentioned that she just wants to be more clear, or, she doesn't like to be in the audience when someone is rambling on. So if you know that's something you do, that you ramble on and you're not as clear as you want to be with your words and concise, that's something you need to work on more to prepare for your next speech. So whatever it is that you need to really work on, and it need not be a really long time. When I was in some speech contests this last year for Toastmasters, I always think it's going to take so long to really internalize. I don't use the word memorize, but internalize my speech. Instead, it's if I say it 3 times, maybe speak it out 3 times and look at it in a story arc, instead of memorizing and focusing on each word and saying it again perfectly, then I find I can know it. I can know it in an hour. I've got that speech. Especially when we use storytelling elements, we tend to know our own stories really well. So we don't need to memorize every word. Let me stick with the time here, make sure I move on. So deadly mistake number 2, throwing away your opening. Throwing away your opening. They're the most important part of your presentation and talk, no matter what public speaking you're doing, is how you start out. And so often we throw that away. How? Sometimes we throw it away by being a little bit too formal right off the bat, or doing what everyone expects us to do. I think especially I see this in business networking meetings. We tend to always just introduce ourselves first, thank everybody. And there's a natural tension that exists in the room, virtual or live in the room before a speaker speaks. We, as a speaker, tend to want to avoid that tension and release it because it makes us feel nervous. Like everyone's waiting for us to what we're going to say, and we feel that. But that tension is a good thing. It's on our side, keeping everyone literally in suspense. Think about like a balloon starting to blow up slower and slower. And if all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey, everybody, so good to have you. And, we've just popped it and lost that. So what I recommend is to pause, take a breath, pause a few moments before you start speaking. Especially this works well if you're speaking live in an audience right in front of you. Stand there, be solid, and make eye contact with everyone first, and then start right in with either a powerful story that's connected to the message that you're going to share, or a statistic or quote or data point that's going to kind of blow everyone's mind, that's connected as well. And that way you've hooked everyone right away. They're already captivated, and you're going to start luring them in, like bait with a fish, luring them in to everything else you're going to share. And of course, then after you can say, again, I am so and so, and thank you so much for having me, and all of that. Especially if you haven't already been introduced. Most of the time, we've been introduced already. So don't waste those first few seconds. Any questions so far? Oh, here we go. Does anyone have questions or action items? Yeah, so feel free to, Patty says, my husband always told me that don't read your slides. Absolutely, don't read your slides. Sometimes if my slide is just a powerful quote, I'll read it just to kind of emphasize it, but I'm talking about slides that have bullet points and they're just going through, and there's a lot of text. And the same, it's good advice for a Zoom presentation as well. Absolutely, Adam. Thank you. All right, we're all good on moving on so far. Excellent. So mistake number 3, we've just touched on this a little bit, but death by data dump. Death by data dump. We're all brilliant. We have lots to share, lots of information. And I think when we get those opportunities to speak in front of people, we really want them to learn everything. Sometimes it comes from a really good place where we know we have this valuable information and we want to give it to everybody. But instead, focus on what do you want that particular audience, write this one down. What do you want your audience to think, to feel, and to do? What do you want your audience to think about, to feel, and to do? What call to action might you have at the end that you want them to do? It need not be sign up for your whatever, or buy this. It could just be you want to change their mindset a bit about how they think about something. And what they're going to go do. Some of your life coaches, it's, something that can really start to change their life right away. So that can be the do. But when we, again, focus more on the audience, not just on us, and we know all this information, we want to give it to you, it's going to be much more interesting. And the old adage is true. Facts tell, stories sell, right? We're all pretty much entrepreneurs here. And that's a really important one. It's a cliche, really, for a good reason. When we're sharing only facts in a data dump or a PowerPoint, whatever it is, when we're sharing mostly facts, our brains can't really hold on to those very well. That's not how we're built, right? Our DNA is built for stories. That's why you remember those childhood stories. That teacher that read you the story that day, your parents that read you a bedtime story, a story you heard in a presentation maybe not long ago. I heard a story this morning in a presentation for BNI, and I'll probably never forget it. It was so moving. I almost had to shut down my video and cry, but I'll never forget that story. Whereas I've also seen lots of presentations where they're sharing facts, and it might be an important fact, but I just don't remember it. So this can be another way. And you might have facts that you want to share. Think of a way you can invoke them in a more interesting way with a question, or tied to a relevant statistic and a narrative that's still going to take that fact and turn it into a way that is going to be more compelling than reading from that PowerPoint. Number 4, deadly mistake number 4. Oh, this is a really good one. So I always have the sticky note. I've had it for years now attached to my computer screen. Simply have fun. Have fun. So yeah, don't be a stiff. Like, because here's the thing, if you aren't having fun, likely your audience is also not having fun. Right? And when I say fun, I don't mean like, woo-hoo, we're gonna party and celebrate, let's light that cigarette up or whatever it is that Derek mentioned before. No, not that. It's about bringing joy, bringing some positivity. And no matter how dark the topic is, if you infuse it with joy because you know you're going to change lives, you love speaking on this topic, right? You're having fun because you're excited, then the audience is going to feel that energy too. So showing up with that kind of fun energy rather than the dread energy, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this speech today, I'm freaking out. Instead, oh, I get to speak to awesome people today, and I'm really excited about it. I feel joyful, and I'm gonna have fun. So remind yourself, I encourage all of you to write a sticky note with some of your intentions that you have before your next presentation, be it a really short pitch or a bigger presentation that you have. I just want to read the chat here. Michelle, fun, get more done. I love that. That's a good expression. Yes, when we're having fun. I read this somewhere, I don't know, one of my many self-help books, but it was about, make a list of the things you just don't have fun doing. For me, it's doing the dishes. And how can you make that more fun? So now every time I do the dishes, I always play my music that I really like. I make the water nice and warm so it just feels good on my hands. I really like the way my dish soap smells now, all of those things. And it makes it, I don't know, slightly more enjoyable, I guess. But that's really important. And Patty says, sometimes I get too serious into my presentation because I am focusing on, not forgetting what I want or forgetting what I want to say. Yeah, and that's really common. Forgetting what we worried about forgetting what we want to say. I've definitely felt that, especially with the speech contest, where I'm literally being judged on a big scale, and there's a time limit as well. And when we blank out, definitely, we can forget what we want to say. I don't think I have this as a tip in here, so I want to share this with you now. My remedy for that. We hear all the time to get out of your comfort zones, and we tell ourselves that a lot with speaking. Like, oh, I'm going to speak at this conference. I'm breaking out of my comfort zone doing this. It's scary. I'm going to do it. The problem is when we do that, we're triggering that mechanism in our brain to be nervous, right? It's a fight or flight reflex that we have. So when we say, I'm going to break out of my comfort zone, we're going to start feeling nervous. And when we have a nervous brain, it forgets what it's going to say. That's why we literally blank out or freeze up. And we experience all the symptoms of nervousness that we often experience: dry mouth, shaking a little bit, all of that. I want to ask you, you can put in the chat, how do you feel when you're in your most comfortable comfort zone? Netflix and chill or whatever it is on the beach. How do you feel when you're in your comfort zone? Relaxed. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Comfortable ourselves. I feel like I could remember anything when I'm in my comfort zone. Oh, like I can conquer the world. Yes, Adam, I love it. Right. Powerful. All right. So why in the world would you want to get out of your comfort zone? Right? Why do we want to get out of it? My strategy I want to share with you is to ex expand your comfort zone. Stay in it, but just expand it out to those scary, uncomfortable situations. Be it if you're an introvert like me, maybe a networking meeting, any time before you speak, maybe a family reunion. I don't know, whatever's making you feel a little anxious and uncomfortable. Set that as the intention. Tell yourself, your brain, that you are going to be metaphorically in your pajamas and fuzzy slippers and, just that version of yourself, your most comfortable version of yourself, while you're doing this scary thing. When I began to change what I wrote down on my sticky note from be confident, break out of your comfort zone, to just, I have one here. It just says, am I present? Do I have calm energy? So when I'm in my comfort zone, I feel this calm energy to just be authentic, to be more conversational, be myself. I can remember anything. So Patty, I encourage you to stay in your comfort zone. Think when you're speaking in terms of the story arc in pictures rather than each word you're going to say next, because we do remember stories really well. So if your presentation has a story arc to it and you know that beginning, middle, and end, you always will know, your brain will know where to go next. And there's no need to really fear anymore forgetting what you're going to say. And I do think that's one of the reasons we tend to rely on PowerPoint slides, because we know that if it's there on the screen and we got all those bullet points, we're not going to forget. But what we sacrifice there is being engaging. And we risk being boring and unmemorable because of that. So it takes a trust and a belief in yourself and in the power of your own story and your brain to remember what comes next to do that. And I wanted to read, let's see, somebody written, what about repeating the last sentence to help trigger the thought? Nice. So, is it Jeanette? Is that how you pronounce your name? So I'm not seeing everybody. Yeah, Jeanette. That's a great idea. Repeating the sentence to kind of buy some time as you're speaking, that can definitely help. When I'm trying to internalize what I'm going to say, sometimes I'll have an outline that just has a single word that will trigger my brain for what comes next. So I could be a little bit more conversational, not just reading the words on the page. That could really help me too. And again, that preparation, that practicing. So if you can type out your whole speech, write it out however you want, and then get it down to an outline, and then get that outline down to where it's just one word that triggers what comes next to you or the story, I find that can work really well. And I know if I can just rely on that, I've got my presentation internalized. I really know it from that. And then again, it's a matter of trusting in yourself. Awesome. All right. Not having fun. Oh, that was all from not having fun. Okay. So we're on number 5 is apologizing. Apologizing. Here's what I mean by that. Like, we get it. You might be nervous, right? And you might make a mistake. But when you pause your speech to apologize for that mistake or to acknowledge, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm just so nervous, I forgot what was coming next. There's no need to do that because, first of all, you're probably the only person that really noticed that mistake. So there's no need to draw attention to it. Your audience most likely didn't notice. And if they did, it's a much bigger deal in your mind than it is to anyone else. And everyone always wants you to succeed, right? Everyone, that audience is rooting for you. They can't wait to hear your message. So my best advice for that, instead of apologizing, is to simply just keep moving on as strong as you can, not to wait and acknowledge that. I was in one storytelling competition and I'll never forget it. In my mind, it was one of my most embarrassing moments ever. I was on the stage. The room was packed with a lot of people I knew, and a lot of family members. Oh my goodness. So I'm up there telling my story for the competition. And about halfway through, it was like I suddenly got really hot. And then it was like the whole room was melting around me. I'll never forget the sensation. And I couldn't remember what came next at all, or what I had said before, anything, where I was, nothing. And to me, a really uncomfortable amount of time went by, like really uncomfortable silence in my mind. I started just sweating. Eventually, I figured out, my brain, thank God, like figured out what came next, because it was a story. And so I started asking myself, all right, what comes next in this story? Like around where am I in, the time zone for my brain of what comes next? And I kept going. I was scared to death to watch that video back. I did not want to see that happen again. I actually just rewatched this video not too long ago. And it was like a few minutes. It wasn't a big deal. Everyone that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I blanked out. It's like, oh, we thought that was a dramatic pause. It really added to your presentation and your story. So if I had paused and been like, oh, I'm so sorry, everybody, I completely forgot what I'm going to say, then, it's not gonna do well for that story. And there's no need for it. So keep moving on. A loss of credibility, Michelle wrote in the chat. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also we're kind of telling ourselves, sorry, um, there's a lot out there too about the language that we use as far as life coaching goes, that, when we stop apologizing for everything, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late, oh, I'm so sorry I forgot this or that, we're kind of always feeling like we're in that state of, I'm sorry. Like, of course, there's times where we need to have a heartfelt apology to someone. We really dropped the ball on something. But start to notice your language that you use every day, whether you're texting someone or if you see the word sorry there a lot, think about maybe how you can take that out, and stop explaining and being sorry for everything all the time. And that might infuse into your public speaking as well. All right. Number 6, how are we doing on time? We're doing good. I want to make sure we have some time for questions and some open dialogue at the end here too. And I believe we will. So number 6, deadly mistake, is rushing and rambling. Rushing and rambling. I love alliteration. So you might be eager, especially if you're nervous, to get to the end of your presentation. But if you're rushing through it, oh, Patty says that's me. Yeah. If you're rushing through it, then your audience is probably going to be eager for you to finish too. But that's not what we want. I think a really utilized and so we're underrated speaking tip is to pause. We don't quite think about it enough. We talk a lot about eye contact and gestures and focusing on the words and the message. Pausing and saying no words at all is your most powerful tool, I believe, in your arsenal of speaking. When we pause, not only do we give ourselves some time to catch up with our own thoughts, to breathe, so we're not speaking just from up here, like when we're nervous and fast talking. But more importantly, we're giving the audience a gift to catch up, to think about what we're saying. So intentionally adding in times to pause. See, I'm remembering now, I'm pausing more. Adding in those important times to pause in your presentation is so important. How do we do that? Sometimes by adding in some more questions for your audience, whether they're rhetorical or you actually want them to answer. This is a mistake I see all the time, is someone will ask a question and then just move right on. So I didn't have time in my brain to even answer that question, even though it might be a question that I really want to answer. It was like a powerful question. Who are you really? Just like, oh, that can get really deep if I really think about it. I want to answer those questions. That can be a way to really engage your audience with questions. Because when we ask a question, they can't help but right away answer in their mind and you instantly have them engaged. So this is also underutilized virtually. Yeah, we have this chat. I love seeing everyone's answer in the chat. There's nothing better than that streaming chat. I think it's so cool to see where we are. And then of course, if you're live, it's a beautiful thing to be able to stop and ask your audience, like, even if it's just, do you agree? Like, what's your experience with that? That can be really wonderful too. And again, that pause in the beginning, right before you start speaking, is a perfect time to pause, even though we tend to want to just start and rush and rush and rush. Of course, when we're nervous, guess what? We tend to speak a lot faster. It's just the way it is. Our brains are like, come on, this is really scary. Let's just get it over with, get to the end. So simply being aware of that you do speak faster when you're nervous, setting that intention to stay in your comfort zone. As far as I know, no one ever died from public speaking. So your inner critic might be kind of freaking out at you, and you can just silently talk back. You know what? I'm just giving a speech here. Like, no one's gonna die. You know, the worst that's gonna happen is, my mouth might get a little dry because I'm a little nervous. But remember that too, that it's safe. Like, you are in a safe place speaking, even if it doesn't feel that way. It is a safe place. You can take your time. You have all the time that you ever need available to you. So how does everyone feel about that one? Pausing. Do you think you pause in your presentations? Yeah, Derek, thumbs up. Thank you. Good. Everybody's ready to add more pauses in. Yeah, fantastic. The last one here. Oh, this is my favorite. That's why I saved it for last. Yes, if I remember this quote, I didn't write it down, but this is one of my favorite quotes. It's from Joseph Campbell, who was the originator of the hero's journey. So all storytelling templates you might see, what I share sometimes, and like I shared in my last workshop here, anything you see out there with teaching people storytelling, it's all basically ripped off from the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell was the originator of it, and he noticed that all stories were essentially the same. A good, compelling story had these same elements, led someone through this journey from the ordinary world to the extraordinary world, back home again. And there's a reason, the stakes always start out really strong. And Disney movies, the hero of the story is usually orphaned, or something really bad is about to happen to them. There's a reason for that, because that gets us hooked. But one of his quotes that I love is, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So everyone that's here today, you might see public speaking mistakes as, a bit of maybe in that cave. Like, you're a little scared of making mistakes. Maybe you're nervous about speaking in general, right? And when we break through that fear, and we have more confidence, when we enter that cave, there's a treasure there for us, right? And that's awesome. We get our treasure. We get that confidence. Everything starts to grow in our life. What I found is that treasure is not meant for us. And that is the true gift. Number 7 is making it about you. A deadly mistake. Making it about you. When we put that attention on ourself, that, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to rock it, and this is, all of that, then sometimes we forget that really it's about the audience. So before you begin to craft out that presentation, that speech, the 30-second commercial you're going to give, whatever it is, begin with that treasure for your audience. What is the gift you are going to give to them because of your words? because of the problem you might begin to solve for them. Right? Put your focus on them first, and then work your way backwards to the beginning of your speech and that message. Again, what do you want your audience to think about, to feel, and to do? You know, and if you can get really clear on that singular message that you want to share with your audience, and why that's important to you, why this story now, why this message today, get in touch with that, because then you'll feel it, and then your audience will feel it too. If you can state that message in like 10 words or less, I would say, then you're clear on it. And that's where that clarity comes from first. Because if already we're beginning with a message that is a little vague or rambly, or I want everyone to know that they can live their best life, right? Instead, if we really get clear, that's too vague. You know, first of all, there's the word everyone. You know, who do you really want to help live their best life? What do you mean by that? What's under that? What's under that? What's under that? Until it's really, really specific about that singular message, then that's that treasure. That is that treasure for that particular audience. And the amazing thing is, when you give that treasure to them and they really feel that it's a genuine gift, there is a ripple effect that naturally will happen because of that. And I can tell you that, but you're going to experience it once you begin to know that that treasure exists. And let me ask you as well, like, how do you feel when you give someone a genuine gift? Like, they're going to love that gift. How does that make you feel? You can write it in the chat. Derek's saying good. Okay, fulfilled. I love that. Fulfilled. Victory. Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm always excited. Like, I can't wait for them to unwrap the gift. Awesome. Joyous. Is there ever fear? Do you ever feel fear when you give someone a gift? They're gonna love it. Oh, there's no fear. There's just love. So remind yourself of that feeling too, because that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing every time you get up to speak and share. You're giving someone a gift, and you get to watch them unwrap it through your words. And you get to feel that victory, Adam. Fantastic. You get to feel fulfilled, awesome, joyous. Is there nervousness there? No. Is there worrying? There's no room there for worrying about being judged, for self-doubt, for worrying about what you're going to say, for whether people care or not. There's not room for that when you fill all the space with love and that joy and that gift for others, right? That's why we're here. That's why we're here, and you're doing what you're doing in all these incredible ways that you serve in this world. Like, that's why. So remember that your voice and your story and your purpose and passion is that gift, that gift from a higher source given to you, right? How are you going to give that back? I'd like to open it up for questions to anyone that you have. We have about 10 minutes left. And while you're asking, I'm going to make sure that I see if I can share this PDF in the chat. That will be awesome. If you'd like more help on crafting your story, or more tips, or learn about more mistakes, because of course there's many more, I'm going to have a sign up link as well for a completely free, no strings attached, no pressure, 30-minute session with me if you'd like to talk story more about any of these topics. So I'll have that link in the chat as well. So please be sure to save the chat. I forget that all the time. And Terri, thank you so much. Terri is amazing. I know most of you know that, but if you haven't, checked on Shifco and connected with her more, please do. Oh, I got a question. Okay, and you can just unmute from now on. Or Adam, would you like to unmute and ask this question? This is about public speaking after all, so let's do some speaking.
Sure. I just wanted
Thanks.
to know if there's any differences in the way, either in tone or specifics, between the Zoom situation and the and live. I will say that for Zoom, one of the things I have been using that seems to work is I've been using a teleprompter application so that and so I can, if I practice a lot, I can really make it seem like I'm not, at the teleprompter, and no one can see that. So, but I can't do
It
that
works for the
live.
presidents, I guess. Yeah, nice.
Well, especially
Nice.
for
How does it
time's sake.
feel? How does it feel when you're using the teleprompter? Do you still feel it's connected to your words? Or like, how does that feel? Does it make you feel more comfortable or?
So I've actually used the teleprompter live, and I find it terrible for that. It's
Oh,
much easier
okay.
for me to connect with the audience.
I
But
see.
on Zoom, because you're not live with the person, and you can't really, it doesn't make sense to move through the look, especially if it's like, more than a few people, right? 10, 12 people. I was
Yeah.
at an event last Friday, there were like 80 people. So you're not going to look at all the people. So what you really, I find you want to do is look into the camera and keep your head as still as possible, actually. Movement, I find, is problematic. And so the teleprompter helps with that because it's sitting right there and it's right in front of you in the middle. And you can read through it that way. And you can practice, because then what you have to do is you have to express yourself through your face, right? You have to
Yeah.
change your look without moving your head too much. So
Yeah.
there I find the teleprompter is helpful. Live, I find it I'm impressed when I see the president, as an example, do that. I find it's not that I find challenging. So it's much easier for me to talk live in general.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that question. Definitely, speaking virtually is so much different than speaking in person in a lot of ways. Although some things are the same, it's just knowing how to do those things. Like eye contact is a really important tool to have when we're speaking live. So virtually, like you said, looking in that lens, sometimes I do forget to look there. And then a thing that works really well to remind you is using a sticky note again with an arrow and just put it up there. Or even better, if you have a photo of someone you love or always makes you feel happy, put a little photo of that person next to your lens, paste it up there. Before I did my speech contest, I have a picture of my son because I wanted to remember to be present and to feel love, and remember like why I do what I do. So his photo really helped me look through that lens a little better. You brought up moving your head too much. Yeah, movements that we have live in Zoom, if we're moving too much and too quickly, can get blurred, right? Like if you're moving, it just gets blurred. So I think slowing it down, I still think gestures are good, but remembering, like sometimes I see a lot of people using I only see the fingertips. So if you're going to use gestures, trying to keep it all in the frame and remembering, yeah, everyone has that front row seat. So some things like leaning in a bit can be making eye contact even more, can be really effective if you're saying an important point. Then again, if you overdo that, that can be distracting. So I think it's finding that fine line for what feels natural and good to you. If you're giving a more formal presentation, I do suggest standing up. Like if you can raise up your screen, stand up, but then you do have to know, right? You don't want to move around too much. But at the same time, I think moving in a bit, using the screen a bit like a stage can be effective. They just had the Toastmasters World Champion of Public Speaking. So of course, I'm such a nerd with all that. I'm watching all the winning speeches, and the ones that were virtual use the screen in such a creative way. And there are some cool things you can do that you can't do live. Like you can bring up a prop that they're not expecting all of a sudden, or all kinds of different things. Come in at a different angle, do some really interesting things still, I think, virtually. And again, everyone has that front row seat. So definitely differences. My number one, sorry, I'm Derry, I'm gonna get to you. I just didn't want to forget this one thing is that don't never forget that everything tells a story. What story are you telling? So I do think it's important to think about what's behind you. Is it, aligned with who I am and how I want to portray myself? Derek, what's your question?
Well, it was more just to kind of add to what Adam was sort of saying and the difference between live and Zoom events. I find that over the years, I've done a wide variety of live events, in front of a group of people. And so when we've made the switch in the last, for me at least, it was the last 5 years, I kind of made the switch to virtual. I always wanted to find ways to ground myself so I could make what I was doing feel to me as though it was more important than simply, I mean, guys, between you and I am just a man in a room talking to himself. But for some reason, I'm wearing shoes, and for some reason, I'm wearing cologne. And these are the types of things that ground me before I'm hosting an event. I mean, guys, just for what it's worth, I'm wearing pants, but I'm wearing shoes for some reason. It makes me feel as though I'm like at work or I'm about to do something. Putting on those shoes and tying the laces make me go, all right, let's get down to business. And so these are some of the little tricks that I've transferred over to virtual world, is making sure that I dress and smell accordingly for myself. So that way I'm like, oh, right, I'm doing a thing right now. So that's what I do.
It is so funny you said that, because one of the biggest things I find is I have to have my feet flat on the floor. Like, I am grounded to the floor. It helps me keep my posture up. It helps me like look into the camera. If my feet are all over the place, that doesn't work at all. I have to, shoes or not, they got to be flat on the floor.
That's right. And actually, the last thing I'll say to this, Laura, is that granted, I do virtual events all the time, and I was just doing work before today's event, and traditionally I stand up when I do everything. So I am very much a fan of the standing. That's how I do all of my virtual events. Granted, for today, I was just here to learn, so I just sat down, but normally I'm up on my feet, and that keeps me kind of active and moving a little bit. But again, using Adam's idea, trying not to move the head too much, you know what I mean? So yeah. And by the way, Adam, I will also echo the teleprompter is a great call. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity for people, how do you do the standing up? How do you adjust the camera so that it's, just sort of, because I've thought about it, but that's why I haven't done it.
If I may, Laura, I'll just say it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I just use like a tripod, and then I personally use a lavalier mic, right?
Oh, yeah, I have a lavalier
one
mic.
ear and one AirPod for listening. So listening in the ear, microphone on the lapel, and then standing in front of a tripod.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I actually have this thing you can get on Amazon that raises, because I like to do my presentations on my mainframe Mac top, so it's big, right? It's hard to just lift up. And there's a thing you can get a riser, so it wasn't that expensive. I just put it on my desk, and that way I can rise it up and down really easily.
That's what I have.
There's all kinds of things for laptops as well.
And you don't find the proportions are hard to set, like, at all, to get it so the screen you're in it in the right way. Do you show your whole body, or do you do your whole body, or do you do it just like from the knees up?
Yeah, I think it's nice to have maybe from your waist up, like for Toastmasters speeches, it should be from at least the waist up. If you see your whole body, you might be too far away, so you have to test that sound. And again, you want to be able to not, like today, I think my lens is actually slightly above where it needs to be, because you want to have it pretty even with your eyes. So you're not looking like you're looking up. You're not looking like you're looking totally down. The best way to really see how you're looking is just open up a Zoom for yourself, and you can record yourself in that, watch it back, really judge how things are looking. Lighting, I think, is super important too. I have a ring light. They're not really expensive. It makes a huge difference, and you're going to come in clearer. I love this microphone. It's called the Blue Snowball microphone. You can get on Amazon. I love that it just plugs in so easy. I think the sound is great. And sometimes if I'm standing up giving a presentation, I just need to raise it up on some books, test it out, have a friend, log on Zoom. How do I sound? Does it sound better? So it's putting a little bit of effort into that. I think is really good. Derek, I love, being grounded. I'm barefoot, but I just like the feel of the floor, like being grounded like that, and acting as if there's a lot about Zoom etiquette out there right now, because how would we act when the transfer is over and we're all in person? Is everyone going to be looking down their phone, or we're all just in shorts and barefoot, or, would you just leave the room? So I think having that Zoom, treating it like it's live in person in some ways, I think is a really good idea and just being, being present. The teleprompter definitely can work, as, to remind you if that feels comfortable to you. I get nervous when I rely a little too heavily on technology because I live out in the middle of nowhere, so there's that. But, if you rely a little too heavily on something, all of a sudden it isn't working. Just make sure you have a backup plan with your technology, whatever it is, old school, written out, outline, whatever. So you're not relying too heavily on it. But great tips. Thank you all so much. I did put my Calendly link in there. I do these sessions on Tuesdays, but if you don't see a day and time that works, just reach out to me and we'll figure out something. I cannot figure out how to get the PDF in the chat. I thought
I'll
I
take
figured
care
it
of it.
out, but it will. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ray.
I will just say, we had Laura do a workshop with us for our team, and it was great. So I'll give you a
Thank
plug.
you, Adam. Thank you. So fun. Thank you. So fun. Patty, I know you have to jump off. Thank you for being here.